life and in my life, not, like I said, not those obvious miracles, but he is working providentially in the lives of his people. He has promised to do so. Trust that he is doing so. Isaiah chapter 41, verses 9 and 10, just a couple verses to show that this is the way the Lord has always worked and tried to encourage his people. He said to Isaiah at a time, Isaiah was living in a time of great discouragement as well, and look what he says, a message for him and for his faithful people that are in captivity, or heading there to captivity. You whom I have taken from the ends of the earth, and called from its remotest parts, and said to you, you are my servant, I have chosen you and not rejected you. Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not anxiously look about you, for I am your God. I will strengthen you, surely I will help you, surely I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. And the ups and downs of the people of the Bible and all the times of their confusion, the Lord has continually came to them through prophets and has said, and himself has come and encouraged his prophets with messages very similar to this. Don't be afraid. Be courageous. I'm with you. I am working. I am for you, and I will help you. Just one little side note to that. Note this as well as you study your Bible. Most of the time, the Lord does not help his people through deliverance. Meaning this, he typically does not make your problem or your difficulty go away. What he does is he gives you the grace to live through it. He gives you the faith to live through it. He builds your faith through the trial, not through good times, but through difficulties. But evil always is working. And if you like to fill out your outline, this is where the outline begins. Evil always has a plan. And if you forget that and you don't take that into consideration, that not only is God working for you, but there are evil forces in this world that are continually working against you. They start at the highest levels and work all the way down to the individual, how evil strategy works. There's an evil strategy to do away with Paul, to kill him from the face of the earth. But if the Lord has told Paul, I'm going to be with you, and you are going to go all the way to be my witness in Rome, there's nothing on earth, there's no forces, evil forces in the world that are going to be able to stop God's plan. If God says it's going to happen, it is going to happen. Doesn't stop evil from strategizing. Here's the first way we see evil strategize in the life of Paul in this passage. With numbers. And when I say numbers, I mean numbers of people, multiple people. Verses 12 and 13. When it was day, the Jews formed a conspiracy and bound themselves under an oath, saying that they would neither eat nor drink until they had killed Paul. There were more than 40 who formed this plot. These were the hitmen of Israel. They were very popular in the time of Israel. They lived in the time of Jesus, sometime before and sometime after, until eventually another revolution occurs, another revolt against Rome occurs. These men were referred to as dagger men. What they did is they had the perfect clothing for hiding daggers amongst themselves. They used these long, sharp knives, and what they would do, they loved situations where they could corner a Roman soldier in a crowded place, and they would casually and stealthily slip up to the Roman, stab him with the knife, withdraw the knife, and disappear into the crowd before anybody really realized what had gone on or before the guy could raise any kind of an alert. These are the type men that have a plot, and there are more than 40. We don't know how many more than 40, but we know that there are more than 40. And they have made a solemn oath. Now, what does that mean? That means that they have swore to God that they are not going to eat or drink anything until Paul is dead. Now, if you, they're not going to succeed. So they, of course, don't go through with their solemn oath, which the Bible tells you is one of the worst things you can ever do. But the current corrupt religious society had ways of getting people out of those oaths. Now, did it get them out of those oaths to God? No, but I want you to see how twisted this is. They believe that they are doing God a favor. They believe that they are the hand of justice on behalf of the same God that Paul follows, that you and I follow. And though they are sincere, they are 100% wrong in what they do. More on that in a little bit. But the first thing, they have a great number of people, and they have put together a plan to kill Paul. Deuteronomy chapter 20, verses 1 through 4, the Lord has explained to his people many times. When you go out to battle against your enemies and see horses and chariots and people more numerous than you, do not be afraid of them. For the Lord your God, who brought you up from the land of Egypt, is with you. The Lord is always to consistently teach us through the Bible, never be afraid of the great numbers of people who are against you. Evil people in the world will always not just outnumber God's people, they will always greatly outnumber God's people. And there's never been a time in human history where people who do not believe in or follow our God outnumber us more than they ever have in the history of the world. There are more people than there ever has been. There are more people who hate Christians than has ever been on the face of the planet, and who are against our God than right now. And the same message from way back in Deuteronomy in Moses' time is the same message for us today. Don't be afraid of that great group of people. It's the same thing in Paul's day. Don't be afraid of over 40 conspirators who want you to die, who are plotting your death. Verse 2, when you are approaching the battle, the priest shall come near and speak to the people. He shall say to them, Hear, O Israel, you are approaching the battle against your enemies today. Do not be faint-hearted, do not be afraid, or panic, or tremble before them. For the Lord your God is the one who goes with you to fight for you against your enemies to save you. We have the same God today. He wants us to feel the same way in the world that we live in today. He wanted Paul to know that as well, to not fear that he was with him. Next, evil strategy number 2 is evil always has allies. Evil always aligns itself with other seemingly powerful allies in this world. Verses 14 and 15. They came to the chief priest. Now, this group of murderers, okay? Look who their allies are. They came to the chief priest and the elders. The religious leaders of Israel are aligned with this group of murderous individuals. But you see, they've justified their sin. Very easy to do when you think that you are right. They said, We have bound ourselves under a solemn oath to taste nothing until we have killed Paul. Now, therefore, you and the council notify the commander and bring him down to you as though you were going to determine his case by a more thorough investigation. And we, for our part, are ready to slay him before he comes near the place. So they have an ambush planned. And not only do they have a murderous ambush planned, they don't care anything about Paul having any kind of a fair trial or the way that justice is supposed to be brought about in Israel. No, they're going to murder him along the way. They're going to ambush him. But they bring in the religious leaders, and what is the great objection of the religious leaders when these evil men come to them? Well, there is no objection. They're in on it. They love this. It's a great idea to them. Next, God fights in a whole completely different way than we would ever imagine. And if you enjoy reading your Old Testament, as I hope you do, you'll see time and time again that the Lord likes to fight in very unconventional ways. Remember, just as one, for instance, remember the Lord fighting against the city of Jericho. Huge city, fortified, giant fortified walls built all around the city. And how does the Lord bring those walls down? Well, he has the people walk around the city and ultimately blow on some trumpets. That's how the Lord fights. He fights in ways that you don't think he's going to fight. And he fights with different people than you think. The first people that he uses people in your life. He uses your brothers and sisters in Christ. He uses loved ones. What does that mean to us? It means that we need to be on the lookout to be ready to be used by the Lord, because we are God's, as strange as it can be. And the most strange theological thing to me is that God uses us, is that we are his first choice. We are his way that he has chosen to communicate with the world and to do things in the world on his behalf. He uses the weak to shame the strong. He uses loved ones. Verses 16 through 22. But the son of Paul's sister heard of their ambush. Let me stop there for just a second. Did you know Paul had a sister before you read this verse? Did you know that Paul had a nephew that apparently liked him? Now, how on earth, in this murderous group of people, this very close-knit murderous group of people, does Paul's nephew know about what's going to happen? Well, the most logical thing, the most common sense, the most obvious thing is he was probably one of them. He's a very good possibility that he is either very close to one of these people or he is one of these people himself. And he says, well, hey, that's my uncle. We don't know the whole story behind that, and I would love to know the details. Here's what I want you to understand, though. This is the way that God is working. It reminds me very much of the book of Esther. You read the book of Esther, God's name is not mentioned one single time in the book of Esther, but his providential miracles are all throughout the book. Remember the king in Esther. He can't sleep one night. Why couldn't he sleep? Well, it's just luck that he couldn't sleep. It's not luck. It's the Lord making him restless. So what does he do? He goes, I can't sleep. Read me something. He summons one of his servants. Read me something so I can fall asleep. Read me something really boring. So he's reading him the history of their people. And what does he just happen to read him? Well, he reads him the story about how a guy named Mordecai helped him out, but he was never rewarded. He goes, whoa, what a strange story. We should probably help this Mordecai guy out. Let's do something good for him. Very lucky thing that he was reading that, right? Not lucky at all. Providential. It was the Lord working in mysterious ways, as people like to say. It's certainly a true statement. He was working through miraculous things. Does Paul's nephew understand that God is using him? Did God come to him and say something to him? It's not what the Scripture tells us. But God is using him nonetheless. God uses you and I too. He will use you against your will. He will use you in a way that you don't even realize that you're being used. So Paul's nephew comes and enters the barracks and told Paul about the conspiracy. Paul called one of the centurions to him and said, lead this young man to the commander, for he has something to report to him. So he took him and led him to the commander and said, Paul the prisoner called me to him and asked me to lead this young man to you, since he has something to tell you. The commander took him by the hand and, stepping aside, began to inquire of him privately, what is it that you have to report to me? And he said, the Jews have agreed to ask you to bring Paul down tomorrow to the council, as though they were going to inquire somewhat more thoroughly about him. So do not listen to them, for more than 40 of them are lying in wait for him, who have bound themselves under a curse not to eat or drink until they slay him. And now they are ready and waiting for the promise from you. So the commander let the young man go, instructing him, "Tell no one that you have notified me of these things." Seems like a very obvious bit of instruction to give him. If people know that you have told me this, your life is going to be in danger too. Don't you dare ever let a soul know that you let me know this information. So you see how easily God has thwarted the entire plan, though. A seemingly very good plan, a seemingly probably a foolproof plan. Paul's going to be escorted by probably 1 or 2 guards just down to court for a more thorough investigation. And that's why they have, well, 1 or 2 people might be overcome very easily by those Roman guards. So what they're going to do, they're going to rush him with 40 men with swords or knives. And they're going to rush him, and they're going to murder him and then get away as best they can. That's their plan. God thwarts their plan. He is in the midst of it. God's strategy number 2. So what he does, first off, he uses people that care about us. If someone comes to you that cares about you, has something to talk to you about, and it is in relation to your following of God, do yourself a humongous favor and try as best as you can to not see that person as the person that you know. See that person as possibly a messenger from God who has something very important to share with you regarding your following of him. God's strategy number 2. I didn't know what to put on this. So I first started with anyone, but then I thought, no, he doesn't just use people. He uses anything. He'll use a donkey if he has to. Doesn't have someone else to speak. He'll use whatever he needs to use. And he'll do it anyhow he wants to. The point is, and what we should be encouraged by, is when God has a plan for you, when God has a plan for Paul and tells him you will go to Rome, Paul needs to understand he's going to go to Rome. Now, you might get beat up a little bit along the way, and he certainly is going to. Beat up, shipwrecked, snake bit. All kinds of terrible things are going to happen to Paul between here and Rome. Let me make one other thing just so you kind of understand the timeline of Paul's life. From the moment he is arrested in Jerusalem, which just happened, to the moment that he dies in Rome, for the last 5 years of Paul's life, he is a prisoner. He spends the last 5 years of his life a prisoner. Now, when the Lord told him that he was going to be his messenger to the Gentiles, I bet you that Paul never thought that he would spend the last 5 years of his life on this earth as a prisoner. But that's exactly what happens. That God has strange strategies, things that if we knew them in advance would make no sense to us and may even discourage us more than not knowing would. But Paul uses anyone, anything, anyhow. Verses 23 through 35. And he called to him 2 of the centurions and said, this is the commander, the Roman commander, the Chiliarch, commander of 1,000, and said, get 200 soldiers ready by the 3rd hour of the night to proceed to Caesarea. So these are 200, and basic isn't the right word, but if we can use that word to describe a Roman soldier, 200 basic Roman soldiers. We're talking the guy who carries a sword and a shield in his basic Roman armor. Those are 200 of those guys, okay? Plus, with 70 horsemen. So 70 cavalrymen as well, which are Rome's best and brightest, and 70 of those guys on horseback. Plus 200 spearmen. Now, these spearmen, those are the ones that, it's funny, the literal Greek says those who grab with the right hand. They grab you with one hand and stab you with the other. These are specific spearmen. So we have what we see God doing. So God is not only thwarting the plans of those who are planning to attack and kill Paul. Remember, there's over 40 of them. Oh, that sounds like overwhelming numbers, right? Well, the Lord provides Paul with 470 of the most elite troops to ever walk the face of the earth. Now, the Lord is hopefully building within Paul his faith and confidence that everything, that the Lord is looking out for him, that he is going to be taken, okay, Kings were not escorted with this many people. Paul is being escorted like he is royalty. The great irony behind it, too, is Paul is like this great, he's being escorted like this. He's not even committed a crime. Verse 24, they were also to provide mounts, multiple horses. So don't just bring one horse for Paul to ride. Bring multiple so we can switch him out in case he needs to be switched from one horse to another, in case we have to run and flee. Make multiple mounts to put Paul on and bring him safely to Felix, the governor. See, their plan is to get Paul out of town, because as soon as you get him out of Jerusalem and start heading towards Caesarea, you're heading into a Gentile populace, a Gentile territory, and where you're going to have a lot more Roman soldiers and a lot more Roman influence and safety. And he wrote a letter. So the commander writes a letter having this form. Claudius Lysias. Now that's his name. They signed their name first in the time of Jesus. That's why Paul's name is at the beginning of all of his letters that he writes instead of at the end, like we sign our letters at the end. Claudius Lysias. That's the name of the Chiliarch, the commander of thousands. To the most excellent governor Felix, greetings. When this man was arrested by the Jews and was about to be slain by them, I came up to them with the troops and rescued him, having learned that he was a Roman. Ooh, liar, liar, pants on fire, right? What's this guy doing? Well, he's lying, but we see what he's doing very obviously. He doesn't say, I had him tied up and was about to whip him, and then he saved himself by telling us that he was a Roman. No, he is not going to let that information get out there. Like, look, Paul, I'm doing you a favor, you do me a favor, and you don't tell them the whole story either. Okay? So he makes himself the rescuer of a Roman in the story, which is not really the way things happened. Verse 28, and wanting to ascertain the charge for which they were accusing him, I brought him down to their council. And I found him to be accused over questions about their law. And they didn't care at all about Jewish law. They let them kind of do it like kids playing in a playground or something. Okay, yeah, play your little games or whatever. We don't care. As long as it doesn't interfere with what we're doing, we don't care. But as soon as it interferes with Rome or any Roman law, then we're going to put a cruel stop to whatever you're trying to do. And I found him to be accused over questions about their law, but under no accusation deserving death or imprisonment. Like, I wasn't going to they wanted to kill the guy, but I'm not going to let someone be killed for no reason whatsoever. So interesting, because they did let Jesus, they had the same conclusion about Jesus, didn't they? But under political pressure, they allowed Jesus to be killed. They killed him. I mean, it was through Roman hands that Jesus was killed, through the Jews. Having been found guilty of nothing. Verse 30, when I was informed that there would be a plot against the man, I sent him to you at once, also instructing his accusers to bring charges against him before you. So instead of bringing Paul to the council like they wanted, they left it, I didn't point it out, but they left under cover of darkness. They left at nighttime before everybody was up. When morning came, he sends someone to the council. They're expecting Paul to show up. The ambush is set, but here comes a Roman soldier saying, hey, last night we moved Paul to Caesarea. If you want to accuse him of something, go there. Now they're going to. We're going to see that next week. They're going to go to Caesarea to make their accusations, but the plot to kill him is gone. So the soldiers, in accordance with their orders, took Paul and brought him by night to Antipatris. But the next day, leaving the horsemen to go with him, they returned to the barracks. So at a certain point, once they got to a place of perceived safety, all the foot soldiers turned and went back, and they just left the 70 soldiers on horseback, with Paul also on horseback, proceed forward. When these had come to Caesarea, they delivered the letter to the governor. They also presented Paul to him. When he had read it, he asked from what province Paul was from, And when he learned he was from Cilicia, he said, I will give you a hearing after your accusers arrive also, giving orders for him to be kept in Herod's praetorium. Some interesting stuff here I'll point out right quick. So he reads the letter. I'm sure he could care less about Paul or what's going on about this plot. However, so the first thing he does, it says he finds out where he's from. Where exactly are you from? Why is he asking Paul exactly where he's from? Because the way the Romans worked, they worked very much like we do in our law society today. They worked under jurisdiction. He wants to make sure that Paul falls under his jurisdiction, because there's nothing he would enjoy more than sending him somewhere else to have this trial, to avoid the headache himself. Once he finds out that he's under his jurisdiction, I'm sure he breathes a big sigh of grief and says, okay, I'll do the trial. After your accusers arrive, we'll wait for that to happen. But there's something very, very neat here. He gave orders for him to be kept in Herod's praetorium. Say, what is that? Sounds like, if we don't know what we're reading here, it sounds like he told them to put Paul in a dungeon, right? Or a jail cell. No. They gave Paul a room in Herod's royal palace. So I want you to see how God has taken care of Paul. First, he gives him an above and beyond royal escort to save him from the plot to kill him. Gives him a royal escort, riding on a horse, the best way that he could possibly travel. And when he arrives, though he is a prisoner, he's given a room in the royal palace to live in. So Paul has to be, because we don't see it in the scripture, but Paul has to be amazed by God in the way that he's taken care of him through all of this. How God takes care of every single detail that's needed, and not only does so, but does so extravagantly. And I believe it's to help Paul to have a greater faith and understand. Here's some takeaways I would have you to take today. So that's the story. I saved the preaching for the very end, so bear with me just on this. Is my last slide, all right? I think it is. There may be one after this. I can't remember. First takeaway, evil has a plan. That was one of our points, so easy to remember. But evil has a plan. It's a scary thought until we remember and realize God is for us. He's going to help us. So though evil has a plan against you, if you're a follower of Jesus, God is with you. God is for you. So don't be afraid. Don't be discouraged. Another takeaway, the people that swore an oath to God, we swear to you, God, Yahweh, they're talking to the same God that Paul does. We swear to you that we won't rest until we do this great justice of murdering Paul. No trial, no court, no following the actual law of Moses. The wrong don't know it, and say, okay, so that's kind of a scary thing. Could I possibly be one of the wrong who doesn't know that I'm wrong? Possibly. But let me tell you how, if you worry about certain things like that, like I do, like I wonder what about my theology is wrong. One of my favorite theologians, I've heard him say before, and it's not very helpful, but I've heard him say before, I know that I have some problems with my theology. My problem is I don't know what they are. It's the way I feel too. I know I don't understand everything perfectly, but what I don't understand is what I don't understand. Now, I know that's a weird thing to say, a weird statement, but bear with me. So if I'm worried about that, or if that's a concern of mine, what do? First and foremost, be the complete opposite of these guys that we read about in the Bible who were wrong and didn't understand how they were wrong. Approach God and the text of God with humility. Don't approach it from a I already know it all, I understand everything already point of view. Approach it from the standpoint of, Lord, I come to learn. And please show me, reveal to me things that I need to change, ways that I think that are not correct, and help me to understand how I should think and behave and respond. we come with humility, which is the greatest critique of the religious leaders of Jesus' day. The star virtue that they all lacked was the virtue of humility. When we come in the right way, then we study and we ask God to help us. Combine those three things, and the Lord is going to help you to understand what you need to do and what you don't know, and how to accord your life. He's promised to help us. Jesus promised the Holy Spirit would help us, that He would help us, that God will help us. Next, take away the wrong. Here's a good way to spot someone who is in the wrong. People with wrong theology and wrong thinking, they justify sin for the greater good. To justify the means, they will say this, the means justify the end. Meaning this is how people will think. In certain situations, it's okay to sin because it brings about a good result. Now, I want you to understand something, church. There are no situations where sin is justified. There are none. Now, if people will try to make biblical arguments about this, take Rahab, for instance. That's one that people will use sometimes and say, well, Rahab lied to protect the spies, and she was praised for it. No, she was praised because for her fear of God, for her faith in the God of Israel. She was never praised for the lie that she told. And she did not have to tell a lie for those spies to be saved. You don't think God could have saved those spies, could have saved His people in another way? Don't go down the road of thinking, I have to sin in order to bring about a good result. It is always wrong. Next, so there's the negative side. Here's the real positive side. God has a plan. You know, personalize that, which I encourage you to do. God has a plan for me. God has a plan for you. You don't know what that is exactly, but He does have it. Just know that He does. He uses us. He wants to use you. Say, I don't know if God really uses me. Here's the people that God uses. He doesn't use all of His people. He uses some of His people. Here are the people that He uses. He uses the people that are ready to be used. Are you preparing yourself to be used by God? If you're not, guess what? He's probably not going to use you. He's going to use somebody that is ready. It's not really a personal thing. It's like, Wes, if you believe that I have things for you to do, then prepare yourself. Prepare yourself to be used by me. You have to be willing. Some people are ready, but they're not willing. Here's another way to say willing. They filled their schedule up so much with other stuff that there's no room for God in their schedule. That's the best way I can say it. When you take all the time that God has given you, and we all have the same amount of time, though some people like to pretend like their time is more important than other people's time, or their time is less than other people's time, or whatever. We all have the same amount of time. But some of us, and I'm guilty, I've been guilty as well, of filling up my schedule so much that when an opportunity comes along to serve the Lord, I can't do it. I can't, because I've obligated myself to something else. And to do this thing for the Lord, I basically have to sin. I have to go back on something that I said I would do. So I'm not saying this is easy. I'm just saying you want to be used by God, be ready, be willing, and be available. Be available to be used. So that when an opportunity comes, you say, yeah, I can do that. I'm ready to do that. I am willing to do that, and I'm available. You make yourself those three things. When I made myself those three things, and there was a time in my life where I had my life so filled with stuff, not sinful stuff either, but just stuff. I had my life filled with so much where I'd used up all my time. I was not ready. I was willing, but I wasn't available. If you align your life in such a way where you make time where you can be ready, willing, and available, God will flood you with so much opportunity that you'll have to pick, and you'll really have to be pick and choosy of what you do for the Lord. He'll do that. If you don't believe me, just try it out. You can test these. You can test these. These aren't theories. These are things. These are things that I've lived personally and can attest to you that they are true. Next, be encouraged by this. Everything is at God's disposal. Don't worry about resources. Don't worry about, it's not possible because I don't know how God could ever make this happen. Don't worry about all the details of how things will happen. The philosophy, if it is to be, it is up to me, that does not apply to us. If it is to be, it is up to God. If it is to be, it is up to Him. And I want you to understand this too. I'm not preaching at you this morning. I'm preaching to myself. These are convicting things to me as well. I use that example of that, if it is to be, it is up to me, because I live by that a lot. I think, man, if it's going to be done, I'm going to have to do it. That's not true. If it is to be, then God's going to find a way to do it, and it might be me or maybe somebody else. And let me say, here's what I'm getting at. If Wes LaFleur is gone from this earth tomorrow, that's not going to cause a blip on God's radar or His plan. He'll use somebody else. That's not to minimize me. That's to maximize God. God always has a way to do things. He always finds a way and does it. Well, this morning I hope that you have been impressed by God. I hope that you've been impressed by a story, like I said, very much similar to like the story that we see in the book of Esther, where we don't see God talked about a whole lot within the story, but we do see the way that God works. I want you to be encouraged in the way that He works in your life, the way that He works in my life, and that we can live our lives in such a way, like the Apostle Paul, knowing that we don't necessarily understand how the plan's going to work, but if you're living and breathing, walking around on this earth today, God still has a plan of some sort for you. Be ready, willing, available, be on the lookout, and be encouraged that God is with you. If there's any who don't belong to the Lord, make today the day that you make that decision to follow Him. Confess Him before these group of people today. Be baptized and follow Him the rest of your life. If there's any way we can serve you, come forward as we stand and as we sing.